say I'm in college now and I want to get into Harvard Business School. And I look at their website and it says the number one criteria to get in is leadership potential. What does that actually mean, this concept of leadership potential? And how in the world can I prove that I have it?
So that's a great question. And all graduate schools value what they call leadership, right? But it's going to look different at each school, and it may come in different forms. So ideally, as an applicant, you're going to be able to provide your leadership experiences from your professional life or from your college extracurricular activities or your personal accomplishments, perhaps your community citizenship, what given to that community. But it's important to remember that leadership, it's not all about power or title or your position, right? You don't have to be the president of everything or the head of everything. But you could focus on various leadership attributes, like your innovative ideas or how you help others or how you proactively solve problems or how you take initiative. There's a lot of ways to show your leadership skills. And I would say as an applicant, focus on telling a story that highlights a problem you faced or a specific role in finding a solution. And that's a great way to demonstrate that to a graduate school.
And I hear a lot these days, Kat, about these so-called soft skills. What are some of these soft skills, and do the admissions officers really pay attention to them?
So they do. They go beyond the numbers, beyond the grades, and beyond what are considered the hard skills, right? Like, are you academically qualified, or the test scores to get in? And they're looking at a lot of things. So they're looking to see that applicants have clear postgraduate goals. So applicants should be ready and able to discuss why they want to pursue graduate school, how maybe that MBA or graduate program can help them achieve their goals, and why is now the best time to apply. They're looking for that sense of focus and clear professional goals. So these students know what they want out of their graduate studies, and they're maximizing that opportunity in every way possible. They also tend to be much more active in the student body, and they're proactive in securing internships or professional opportunities, right? These are different ways of showing off their soft skills. Ultimately, I think graduate schools want to admit students that are capable of self-reflection, self-evaluation, and self-expression, right? So students who are more aware of their own strengths and weaknesses actually tend to be better classmates and teammates, and they make use of academic resources more, and they're better suited for campus leadership positions, and they make strong job applicants. But I will say that self-reflection it's crucial. It's a crucial part of preparing for the graduate admission school process and building on those soft skills that we talked about earlier. And the questions to think about for students when they're practicing that self-reflection are like, what are your most impactful career accomplishments? So maybe they've been working before they applied to graduate school. What industry, function, or discipline appeals to you and why? What skills are you looking to build, right, when you get to that school? Why are you even taking this step in life? And it's important to take the time to think about your life and career, and then you can demonstrate these personal anecdotes through your essays and your interview and your letters of recommendation. You can show that to a college. And I think, communication, problem solving, teamwork, leadership skills, all of these things can be developed and improved upon through all different initiatives. So whether that's professional development and opportunities or getting involved in your local or campus community, if you're still a student. But I think one of the things that we do as counselors is help students build up those soft skills and help them become more self-aware so they become better applicants. Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to them being authentic, authentically who they are, right? And I think some students go into the process and they think, oh, they have to shape this sort of fake version of themselves, to present that to an admissions committee. But students have to be authentic while also practicing confidence, even if they're not 100% confident all the time in their own skin, which none of us are 100% of the time. But and some people might say, can I fake it till I make it, sort of thing. And if you have to truly fake everything to make it, then maybe graduate school is not the right step for you, or it might not be the right fit for you. So I think if you're applying to graduate school, you don't want to pursue a degree unless you're really confident about what your future goals are. And you want to make sure you're academically prepared for that. And you want to make sure you're ready for rigorous work and potential lost income, if you're going to be enrolled full time. Debt, taking on debt. You might have a limited option for potential schools for graduate school, because you might find that there's less variety and fewer options for graduate students. So, I think, again, what we do is counsel students for what we start at any age. We start with for very young all the way up to older students. And again, it's about part of the counseling process is developing those soft skills, encouraging that self-confidence. I'm a big believer that self-confidence breeds success.
But what happens
right?
but what happens if you, for example, suppose you're introverted, you're super nervous, how do you display that confidence and that authenticity if actually you're not that comfortable in your own skin for that interview? What do you do then?
So the interview is a great chance, by the way, to add that personal touch to your application. So I think it's important. It gives you an opportunity to have your questions answered about the school. And if you're a hardcore introvert, you want to make sure that you prepare for that interview to make a strong impression. So, I think that students can do more harm than good to their candidacy if they haven't prepared adequately, right? And the best thing that they can do is research the school and figure out why this is the best fit for them and why this is the best next step for them, right? They want to review their notes that they've taken about that program. I always say to applicants, practice makes perfect. So if you are an introvert, it's a great idea to do some mock interviews with friends or parents or colleagues or maybe a counselor. So they can be really helpful. You can think about how to respond to questions, how to verbalize effectively. Also, with more practice, you get more comfortable in your own skin, right? You get more comfortable with the process. We tell applicants the interview is about you, right? The college is trying to get to know you. So you want to be as natural as possible. And so the more prepared you can be and show that school how you'd fit into their, academic and social community, how to communicate who you are. Again, practice talking about yourself. And remember that interview is a dialogue. So you don't want to just show up and be stiff and just answer questions. You also want to take that opportunity to learn about the school. So put your own questions together and make sure you ask them in the interview. I also say, follow-up is really important. You want to thank the interviewer. If it's in person, shake their hand. Maybe it's remote, maybe it's by Zoom, but you want to make sure to thank them. Ask for their email address so you can send a follow-up note, and you may want to refer to a specific aspect in the interview to refresh the interviewer's memory, because they might be interviewing a lot of people. And then you keep in touch before sending your application. But I do think being introverted does affect the entire admissions process. And I know we're going backwards, but if you are a very shy, quiet student, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard for your teachers to get to know who you are as a scholar.
Should you lean into, should you say during the interview, this is hard for me, I'm introverted, or is that stupid?
I don't know that I would just put it out there. I think, again, it's about practice. You don't want to just all put it out there like I'm, like throw out what you consider to be your weaknesses.
Mhm.
Hopefully you're not going to be nervous before that interview. And but I would say, it is okay. You should be okay with failure in your life, right? So they're also looking, colleges, graduate schools are looking for resilience, right?
What does that
Uh,
mean? I hear so much about resilience. What does that even mean, and how do you demonstrate that?
so I think it means, the way I define it is the ability to recover quickly from difficulties, right? So that's resilience, and to be okay with failure, because failure is a chance for you to learn from your mistakes in order to move forward. And that goes back to that self-reflection that we talked about, right? So if you take a moment, or maybe longer than just a moment, to reflect after each mistake you think you've made, or each failure you might encounter in your life, you look at those opportunities to grow. And I think you could tell a story about that in your interview, right? It's
But does Harvard Business School and Stanford Business School want somebody that failed all throughout their college career? And I'm playing devil's advocate.
well, they don't want someone who's failed in terms of, academically failed, but each of us fail every single day, right? I mean, we all have, these sort of micro failures or micro mistakes. We're not perfect. We're human, right? Which makes us imperfect.
But the
So
important thing is coming back and reflecting on that and learning and trying different things from that experience and reflection.
exactly. It's like how you deal with your own, mistakes or your own failures, and recognizing those things, understanding your strengths and weaknesses. And I do think there's a way to communicate that in the interview, uh, and without, bombing the interview, right? I think there's a way of turning that what could be considered negative into a positive.
And
And because they really, these are human beings applying, and human beings are interviewing other humans, and
Mhm.
humans are imperfect.
And does this sort of come back to another term I hear a lot about, especially in graduate school applications, but vulnerability? I was always raised as a kid, that vulnerability is a sign of weakness, not of strength. But is that true?
Well, again, going back to ways to build those soft skills, business schools or graduate schools, they want students who are capable of that self-reflection, self-evaluation, and self-expression. So tapping into those skills actually might be considered a form of vulnerability, but they're strong skills. It's not a weakness. So if you're thoughtful and intentional about the application process, you're demonstrating how you're going to be a successful business school student or graduate school student, and ultimately how you might stand out as an employee after graduation. So again, I think it's to have some vulnerability is okay. You have to show, I think, a range. You're not a robot showing up to an interview, right? Or you're not robotic in your life, right? And just like you have to show off the different things about yourself. And I think, again, it's how you show things in context, and how you can make show how you've grown, how you've developed, grown, learn from certain things. And that would be great to express on your applications.
Okay, so and now in what has to be the weirdest format ever, let's continue in reverse chronological order. And so now I'm a college applicant. So my high school counselor keeps telling me that culture fit is so important when considering the right college. So what does that mean, and how in the world do I assess fit?
Okay, so we talk about this a lot, and it may come as a surprise. A lot of people don't know that there's over 3,000 four-year colleges and universities in the US. But it's typical for students and families to start their list from the rankings list, right? They read those published rankings that are out there. And a lot of people are only familiar with a handful of what I would call the brand name schools, or the name brand schools. So it is so important to understand fit over rankings. And just because a school is number one on some list doesn't mean it's a number one school for you.
Hmm.
So what we advise students is they should be applying to schools that are a good, not only good academic fit, but a good social fit, where they're going to be happy and successful and thrive over 4 years, right? So each school is like a fingerprint, right? Each school is different and has its own set of specialties and types of students they attract. So what we do when we're guiding students is we're helping them put together a list of what we call best fit schools that have the academic programs that match a student's interests and the community and the environment and everything that aligns with their interests, right? So instead of prioritizing schools because they sound impressive or prestigious, students really, or what we're helping them do is search for institutions that are giving them the opportunities that they're actually looking for.
Isn't it important for a student to get outside of their comfort zone in a college? So if they're sitting there articulating all of their interests, what if they don't even know what their interest possibilities are? So how can you assess that, getting out of your comfort zone part of the equation?
So I think fit has to do with a couple of things. One is did you find your tribe? Did you find your people? When you get to the school, did you find the academic programs you want to pursue, the professors you want to study with? That might be what's quote unquote in your comfort range. But I think there's also a part of higher education that's about stretching, right? It's about being challenged, by a diverse student body, let's say, from people who are unlike you, who grew up in completely different environments than you did, right? Who might add something different to the different perspectives inside the classroom, or different perspectives in the dorms. So there is going to be some level of stretching. There should be when you get to higher education. But as far as if you don't know what you want to do, here's the dilemma with that. A lot of schools ask the question on their application, on the supplements, what are your academic interests and why do you want to pursue them at this school? So you have to define your interests today. Now, those interests may change after the first month of when you get to the school, or they may change in the middle of your college career, or they may change afterwards, right? Some people change professions, completely change professions in the middle of their lives, right? So you're not bound to those things, but you do have to clearly talk about who you are as a scholar and who you are as a member of the community of your high school when you're applying to colleges. So you will have to define your interests. And what we do as counselors is, if someone ever tells us, I don't know what I'm interested in, it's just not true. They're lying, right? And it's like, my 5-year-old can tell me what she's interested in. Everyone has interests. The question is now, how do you define them? How do you boil them down into things that you would actually want to dive more deeply into today, understanding that you're not beholden to those things forever.
So I do everything right. I go through the process. I follow your advice, and I'm not getting in to my top schools. And all my friends, to make things even worse, all my friends are getting into their top choices. And I'm totally bummed out, and I see them posting on Facebook, hey, I got in Vanderbilt, I got in Harvard. How do I keep my sanity during this process? I mean, are there any support groups, or does that make me soft to join support groups? I mean, are these mental health challenges real?
So first of all, if they're following our advice over 4 years, they're going to get in the right schools for them, and they're not going to be rejected everywhere. So that has actually never happened in the history of IvyWise. So if they really are following our advice, and look, we put a lot of advice out there on our website that's free, that people can read, starting from an early age, and they can get that information that's been filtered, that's good information to help them prepare. But let's say a student did not use IvyWise, they got rejected from
the non-IvyWise solution,
right? And they got rejected from their top choices. First of all, it's so important to realize that it's so not personal right now, right? There's the record low percentages of students getting into very selective schools, and more
sure
and
does
more
feel
students,
personal.
What's that?
Sure does feel personal. I'm getting all these rejection notices and my friends are getting in.
It does feel personal, but when you start looking at what the numbers are, you and hopefully students can do this research, or a counselor will give them this research, that the colleges could fill their classes 2 or 3 times over with qualified applicants, right? And unfortunately, there's just not enough room to accept everyone. So we do tell students, do not take the denial personally, right? There's tons of other kids who are in their exact same boat. So, sometimes it is, a rejection might be hard to avoid, especially if you're applying to an extremely selected school where, there's, no guarantee. But students can prepare for that unfavorable admissions news by planning ahead and taking appropriate steps, after the decisions come in. So if they've developed that balanced list of best fit schools, talked about best fit before, and they set realistic goals, right? They can, first of all, avoid receiving too many rejections. But if they are rejected, it's really important to keep things in perspective and not to allow like 1 or 2 or 3 letdowns to overshadow other successes. So hopefully if they've done the process right, they have gotten into some schools, and those schools that want them, they should take seriously, right? Because they should want to go where they're wanted, right? It's almost like you don't want to go to that place that doesn't want you, right? You want to go where they want you.
But is that human nature?
I think it is. I think you can allow time for mourning, right? And it's okay to take some time to feel disappointed. I think students need some space and time to process. This might be the biggest rejection they've ever experienced in their life thus far. We advise students not to dwell. I mean, I think it's okay to take some time to feel sad and validate their feelings, but not spend the next year sulking or moaning. Part of being resilient, which we talked about earlier, is learning how to move on and focus on what opportunities you do have. Focus on where you did get in. And you could look at, the past research you've done. You might, so for the schools you have gotten in, compare the financial aid packages, and go back to those original reasons why you actually applied in the first place, right? And then you can choose where you want to enroll. You should always have an idea. We tell students not to have that grail school. Like there's not only one first choice and that's it, right? Every school, the 10 to 15 schools on your balanced best fit school list should be your top choice. Like you should feel bummed if you didn't get into any one of those. The other thing that we find is feelings can change from the date they submit the application to the date that they get their decisions. We really, we're students cheerleaders. We encourage them to stay positive. Rejection is a part of life. It is a part of life. Like we're not always going to win everything that we want. And I think it's an important life lesson to go through, as hard as that is. But if students have planned ahead, applied to a wide range of schools, which they'd be happy to attend any of them, then they're going to be attending a great fit college. And also, we advise students to focus really on the journey ahead, right? Get excited about all the opportunities come fall. I think for a lot of teens, the worst part is telling their peers, right? Because some peers have gotten in and have done really well, and they're wearing like the sweatshirt with the name of the college on it to school the next day. And I think that's really hard, and students can find comfort in connecting, first of all, with other students who have experienced the same thing, because believe me, there are going to be other students on campus who are also facing rejection. So they want to connect with friends and classmates going through the same process. There are some anonymous online forums that you could join with other students who are going through that same thing. And I think really important is using your high school counselor or your independent college admissions counselor can be a great resource during this time. Don't feel ashamed of your emotions, whether they're positive or negative. Own your own emotions and validate those.
Let's rewind the clock a little bit and go, let's go to K through 8, because I'm fascinated that you do coaching for this as well. And so it's my first and only child, and education's super important to me. Kindergarten, what's that interview process like? And, what as a parent can I do to help my child prepare for that?
So, admissions officers are primarily at that point looking at what we call the soft factors at that point, which are things like maturity, a student's emotional development, their social development. And they want to make sure ultimately that young person is going to be academically prepared for the rigors of the curriculum, but also that they're developmentally prepared. So that's where like the interviews come into play, and they can be a key part of that application process, or maybe they're observing your child in a group and how your child interacts with other kids in the group. So the admissions process for independent schools is also more of a family exercise than it is in college admission. So oftentimes the parents are going to have to write their own essays, and they're going to be interviewed as part of the application process to both lower and upper schools. And I think this is really important to consider, because when a K-8 or K-12 school is admitting a child, they're admitting the family. And a lot of times families forget that the parents are also part of that greater community. So schools want to work with really nice, great parents who are going to contribute in a positive way to the community. So if the parents seem difficult in the very beginning, most likely that's a sign they're going to be difficult going forward. And I think parents need to remember that the power really is in the schools when it comes to exmissions.
You guys have succeeded in every single service area that you offer, from K to 8 to college to grad school. And by far, you're the #1 firm in this space. What's next for you guys?
I'm sort of very big in the Web3 space, and am very bullish on this going forward. So I do see education moving into the metaverse. Part of some of the educating I do is teaching students about cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, NFTs, understanding what's happening, where our world is going right now. And that's been really fun for me. And I think that
why is NFT so important? What does that mean within the context of what you guys do?
Well, in terms of what we do, I think ultimately we will be working in a world, and it's probably not going to happen right away, where some of the education, right, there's a limited number of beds, right, at these universities, right, that they might expand in some way in the metaverse. And if you think about it, like online education, like what we're doing right now, a Zoom is a 2D metaverse, right? We're in these Brady Bunch squares right now, and it's 2D, but ultimately we're going to be in a 3D world with our avatars and things like that. And we will all own digital assets, and especially the kids that we counsel will have digital assets, which are those NFTs, right? And an NFT just means non-fungible token. It generally is a media that is registered on the blockchain, which is a public ledger it is data registered on the blockchain that points to certain media, right? So in our digital wallets, we'll probably have some form of verification or identification that will allow students, for example, to get into a class that's given virtually or given in a metaverse, right? That would be our student ID, which would be on chain. MIT has started already releasing their degrees on chain. So you're able to get instead of like the paper document that we used to get a long time ago. So it's on the blockchain. So you're verified as a graduate of MIT. So I think things are going to be changing in our space. And I think it's important for students actually, and parents and the adults, to understand where we are going. Um,
So I'm a big basketball fan, and I see the NBA has embraced NFTs, and
yeah.
they sell clips of Michael Jordan making a great a shot. Is there an analog to that in your world?
You know what I can't give away everything that we are doing, but
Just talking
there,
to the microphone here, Kat.
yeah.
All confidential.
But you know, I am constantly noodling on this topic, and I research this space pretty much every day because I think a lot of what we call legendary businesses are moving in some way towards NFTs. So
So more to come.
more to come. Yes, more to
Well,
come.
Kat, this was amazing. This was probably the fastest hour of my week. So thank you so much for indulging with me and my silly questions in my reverse chronological order, but I have thoroughly enjoyed this.
Well, thanks so much, Jeff.